Hi everyone, please support our videos on Patreon. The link's at the end of the video and in the down there part. Thank you, you're lovely.
Sapphics! Well, here it is. The official turning point of Luz and Amity's relationship. The point where they evolved from rivals into budding friends. The point in which those very early shippers got their first legitimate skosh of vindication before getting more. And more. And wow, a whole lot more. Given everything that's happened in the show since this point, it's almost weird to come back to it. Hell, I've gotten so used to Amity's purple hair by now that seeing it turn back to green in my rewatch is damn near jarring. I mean, this development hasn't even taken that long. As I've said, the show has been practically speedrunning these character arcs, though not without consideration to their execution. So I'm not quite sure why going back to this episode feels as weird as it does. Maybe it's the multi-month hiatus and the pandemic screwing with my perception of time or something? Ah, whatever. Anyway, I think we all know how this episode plays out. Luz and Amity are roped into library shenanigans, we meet the Blight twins, Eda and King have their baby B plot, wow that came out weird, and we all end the episode with the warm and fuzzies. The question is, however, is there anything noteworthy about this episode other than it being the point where Luz and Amity's friendship and subsequent relationship finally gets going? Well, despite that being a rhetorical question, I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. The episode begins with Luz once again sinking back into her escapist Azura fantasies with prospects of befriending your rivals. We are now 3 for 3 on Luz having to learn that things in reality, yes, even a reality like the Boiling Isles, does not play out like it does in her books. Except in this case it kinda does? We'll get back to that. Though honestly, if there were a fantasy Luz would absolutely cling to, the idea of being able to befriend your supposed rivals is one I can absolutely see her having. We've seen at this point that she wasn't the best at making friends back on Earth, and we are presented with even more evidence going forward that she got picked on for her shenanigans. A lot. So when she sees a character that is so likable in her own world that even her enemies come around to her, you can see why someone like Luz would find that prospect tantalizing. If you had the power to just make your enemies or even your bullies just cut the shit out and actually like you wouldn't have another awkward or unpleasant social encounter ever again. Luz, who likely only ever had unpleasant social encounters, would covet this, like a dragon covets gold. So even when the episode gets going and we see how this attitude lends itself to the conflict, we can nonetheless sympathize with Luz. Anyway, Luz is rushed off to the library to return Eda's books while she and King get started on the B plot with the Bat Queen's newborns. Real quick though, I've said this before, but I still love how Eda checks out books from the library. We know that she despises the standardized education system of the Boiling Isles, but that doesn't mean she hates learning. She still loves magic and wants to learn all there is to know. She just wants to do it in her own way. I love that. The B plot itself is alright, nothing spectacular. Eda leans into some of her long repressed maternal instincts for the Bat babies. And that joke about empty nest syndrome at the end is pretty cute, until season 2 happens where we learn that it's very much not a joke. Back at the library, Luz sees the first solid piece of evidence that Amity is not the absolute worst TM. I will say up front that this scene with Amity and the little kids is objectively absolutely adorable. Note for all writers, you want to set up a redemption or otherwise show a morally dubious character's good qualities, having them be good with kids right out the gate is never a bad idea. And I'm not even speaking from a strictly maternal place here either. Only the truly ignorant or the especially assholic don't recognize that you should always be patient, understanding, and respectful to children. I get that a lot of my generation have made it their personality to hate children as a pushback against their parents pressuring them for grandkids or whatever the fuck, but the fact remains that children are still the most vulnerable demographic there is in this world, and being assholes to them only guarantees they come out as fucked up and emotionally stunted as you did. And here Amity is, being as good to these kids as she wished her parents were to her. Oh shit, is that it actually? Fuck, I just wrote that into the script as a joke. Oh Christ. She's being a nurturing figure to these kids because she didn't have one of those when she was their age. What the fuck? Alas, the second Luz shows her face, the switch is flipped, and Amity stonewalls any attempts she makes at trying to establish a rapport. Luz, bless her enormous bleeding heart, goes way too hard, way too fast at the first inkling of a situation possibly playing out like in her books. This leads to Amity blowing up at her and watching Luz leave with her tail tucked between her legs. A sad moment, but kind of a necessary one for Luz to understand. Oh, but what's this? 2 new players have entered the fray. Here we meet recurring support characters Edric and Emera Blight, and their introduction is absolutely rock solid. They're cheeky, they're in sync while also trading barbs with each other, and they service this episode perfectly. Also, they help Luz demonstrate that she's bi, which is always nice. If there's one strength to the Blight twins and the Blight family in general, it's their entertainment value. Cards on the table, the Blights are not the most in-depth or complicated characters. They're just a rich family with varying degrees of awfulness. Amity's the only one in the family with any degree of depth, and even then it's not a whole lot. And that's okay. The Blights are not the main characters, no matter how many people in the audience might want that. So they don't have to be complex. Their presence just has to serve the episode in some way, and the Blights in this episode do just fine. Also,
she is not my friend.
Hola, Batata. Did you just call me a sweet potato?
First you embarrass me, then you want to be my friend? I don't get you. Pick a side.
Yes, but right now I just want to keep my girlfriend from being sent to the conformatorium. Again.
That'll never not be funny. Anyway, after getting roadblocked by Amity, Luz takes her chance trying to befriend the Blight twins, who take to her very nicely. They play pranks, they have a nice night out, and for the first time, Luz feels like one of the cool kids. Alas, this wouldn't be a story about hanging out with the cool kids if there wasn't a moral event horizon, that being the discovery of Amity's diary, which the Blight twins intend to take in order to settle a personal score. Naturally, this goes against Luz's moral compass. Poor girl just can't bring herself to wish harm on those who've wronged her. She can only do that if you come after someone she cares about. And of course, Amity finds out, because why wouldn't Luz have that string of bad luck? There have been people saying that Amity calling Luz a bully is rather hypocritical, and while that's certainly true, she's still very much a 14-year-old girl who is mortified that her privacy just got breached. Find me someone who wouldn't be at least a little hypocritical in those circumstances. Besides, she doesn't stand by that sentiment for long and openly addresses the hypocrisy of it all at the end, so no worries. Oh yeah, the end. So this is where things get a bit more technical. As we've seen in Witches Before Wizards and conventions, Luz has a hard time grappling with the fact that she can't rely on fandom tropes and quirkiness to get her out of a situation. However, in this episode, Luz sets out to befriend Amity, and she kinda does. It's a bit ambiguous at the end, but we see in Adventures in the Elements that they're very much on friendly terms now. So does that mean that the ongoing theme of Luz's character arc fumbles in this episode? Well, I don't think so. Sure, Luz managed to secure a friendlier place in Amity's life because of this, but she didn't just quirk her way into Amity's heart.
I was all like, "Rah!"
Okay, bad choice of words, let me explain. One of the main problems Luz has in terms of dealing with Amity at this point is respecting her boundaries. Hell, in conventions, Amity was legit just doing everything she could to get Luz to leave her alone, but Luz wouldn't let up, which led to that dual fuckery. Here, it's a very similar case. Every mishap is a result of Luz not being welcome in Amity's space. It's only when Luz respects those boundaries, and her saving Amity from a monster that came out of a storybook, but don't worry about it, that Amity begins to have second thoughts about her. Because Luz isn't doing any of this maliciously like Ed and Em have, and unlike those two, she apologizes for doing so, even if she didn't mean to. It's what gets Amity to come around to her. Luz didn't earn Amity's friendship through protagonist privileges. She earned it because she learned to respect boundaries, a very crucial social lesson to learn when you're growing up. So no, this episode does not run anathema to Luz's character arc, because she wouldn't have made any headway with Amity without letting go of some of her preconceived notions and maturing a little. And hey, they both like Azura, so that's a plus. So it's a good episode on its own, and it's a good start to Luz and Amity growing closer. Ed and Em were enjoyable, and the B plot was there. And it was really interesting to be reminded just how seriously Amity takes privacy, considering that at the start of Season 2B, we see her actively respecting Luz's privacy by not going through her phone when she suspects Luz to be lying to her. Good episode. It's a body swap episode. They even say in universe that it's a body swap episode. If you've seen one of these, you've seen them all.
This is just like my favorite early 2000s movie, Freaky Saturday.
All right, did everybody learn a valuable lesson about experiencing each other's hardships?
Yep.
Good. Let's end this nightmare.
There's really not much to say about it. The only thing I can really talk about is the tiny bit of exposition between Ida and Lilith that was revealed, and Basha's official introduction as a recurring antagonist. Neither of them play an especially crucial role in the episode, so there you go. That doesn't mean that this episode isn't worth watching, of course. It's still three characters that are highly entertaining, being put in new environments and circumstances. There's a reason that this particular trope is seen so often, and that's because they're entertaining. It's just that there really isn't much we can do in the way of critical analysis. It did give us one of the most memorable Hootie quotes though.
I'm 20% mucus, but don't let that stop you! Come on, I have so many hard to reach spots that need swabbing!